And the first GPT voice model, I think, was Scarlett Johansson, just to be funny. The From the Her movie, like it really was a fake, and I think Johansson got mad and was like, "Don't fake my voice for your AI or what, what or whatever."
Hello, good morning, Mike.
Good morning and happy Monday, Jack.
Happy Monday. Yeah.
By the way, did you know that the name of this show we're on is
Mhm.
called Surviving AI?
Yeah. Yeah, I keep
So
forgetting that it's a show, but
it is, pretty much weekly if I can get my act together. But I'm working on it. But yes, it is a show because
Mhm.
it's I guess we don't have to unpack how the world has changed, but I do think there's something really interesting about as we've digitalized all this information. I don't think we've actually really reconciled a lot of things about it. Like reading is one. So I have this new class just is going to start in strategery and AI, something like that.
Oh, well, congratulations. Yeah, it's good to be strategic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so. That was my hope is that it's like, okay. But you probably talk to people as well, and they'll have opinions about AI for some reason. And yeah, what was I talking? Well, someone was finally like, well, it's just a tool, right? And this is the funny thing is like if we said, surviving high school, right? Like,
Yeah.
well, high school is a tool, I guess, right? You're gonna have things, places to go, some teachers are good, some are bad, somebody's gonna
Mhm.
make fun of you, somebody's gonna like you. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like it's a mixed bag. But we like education, and now I'm talking about master's degree people. So my hope, and I think I told you, the starting goal of this is for them to introduce themselves and do this two truths and a lie, because I think we got into this a little last week, but maybe we can a little kind of bit further. That I start to see some things in AI which, please, you have maybe a completely different perspective, but
Mhm.
um the I wouldn't say that it is going downward, but I start to see its flaws, right? Like this was sort of this miracle thing 2 years ago, right? Like this thing could take a voice or a text command and
Mhm.
turn it into something, or you could talk to it in sort of a normal fashion, right? Like they all have voice models too, right? And
Mhm.
and the first GPT voice model, I think, was Scarlett Johansson, just to be funny. The
Mhm.
From the Her movie, like it really was a fake, and I think Johansson got mad and was like, "Don't fake my voice for your AI or what, what or whatever." But anyway, this idea, this kind of miraculous thing that turned words into stuff. You know,
Mhm.
you're thinking back. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a slightly different, view. I'm kind of, I'm increasingly kind of enthusiastic about it.
This wasn't meant to be
Mhm.
non-enthusiastic. I'm
Mhm.
just pointing out, like, I start to see the cracks,
Mhm.
and and you can contradict me, but we spoke about it a little last week, which was the n-dimensional math problem, which is that as you get further out into a bunch of decisions, right? It's a little bit like how obsessed I am about hi-fi crap, and start really reading hi-fi crap. And the thing is, the more obsessed you get, the more there is to be obsessed about, right? Like
Yeah.
there there's literally no end to obsessions, right? And the minute you kind of like take your hi-fi obsession and turn it into your classic car obsession,
Mhm.
you're already stressing your abilities. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to do both, right? And for obsessive people, let's hope that they stick to one lane just so they can share some Venn
Mhm.
diagram in their obsessions, or whatever. Does that make sense? I'm just saying that but the same thing is true of AI. Like it narrows, right? It gets into a narrow thing and it can't go backwards, right? It can't become unobsessed and say, really, you should be into fine wine,
Mhm.
or something, like it's not gonna go tangentially, willingly.
Yeah.
And I've started to notice this with a lot of my crazy work when it comes to understanding physics, because I did that early on, and now it will only tell me what I want to hear. You know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
literally can't push back. So when I show some things to actual physicists, it's
Mhm.
great because they're like, what? You can't say that, or that's, you know what I mean? Like it's obvious to them where I'm not worthy. You know what I mean? Because that's our superpower, right? You're not obsessed enough. You haven't got the T27 battery powered,
Mhm.
doohickey, what, right?
Mhm.
Like you can tell your obsessives from your non-obsessives. Does this any of this
Mhm.
ring making some sense, right? But what I meant is now I'm starting to think AI is going to be closer to the way we are, which is we'll get bored, we make up stuff, we already do that, right? And that, most of the things will have to be treated as sort of, I mean, this is where computers are not good, which is
Mhm.
they're supposed to be reliable, you know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of why we invented them, right? They're not supposed to like make stuff up and be wrong. Even 5% of the time can be bad when it comes to like medical diagnoses, right? But I'm like, well,
Mhm.
95% is really good
Mhm.
if you're not a doctor. You see what I mean? Like I'd say the advice it gives me or whatever when I'm asking it about complicated stuff is pretty good because I'm not going to sit there here and inject myself with X. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I can easily start to eat more kumquats or whatever it tells me to do and see how it goes. So
Mhm.
so there's a big range of things that I think it's easily going to jump into. But the reason I mention it is should it not be surviving this anymore? Because this replacement thing now doesn't feel like, I don't think it was ever going to happen, but now it seems, I don't know. What any of this
Well,
making sense to you? What do you think?
yeah, well, I think maybe to kind of, I share your feelings, quite a bit about all this, but maybe we are probably not having the AI that actually exists, right? So the AIs that we are using are kind of constrained by all those guardrails that we talked about last week, and Dario Amadeus, conflict with the United States government. Because they request the model that was basically plain, like unconstrained AI that is able to talk about anything and is able a question about anything, and that was obviously military applications that he was objecting to, and all that weaponry stuff. So the AIs that we talk to are kind of like muffled, like constrained. So maybe under the hood there is this wonderful V12 engine or this wonderful cigar, but we are using it through a filter that is perhaps removing a lot of its potential. And yes, maybe there is no inherent ethics underneath the hood and all that stuff. But the fact that AI is agreeing with you all the time, and it has those personalities that are maybe kind of shallow, that maybe are predictable, and in the example of physics, right, maybe will kind of like limit the depth of the answer. Um, is probably a function of the artificially created guardrails, uh, and physics is maybe kind of like a particularly um, interesting example because um, physics for a number of decades has been constrained by some camps of scientists that where the string theory was the kind of like a dominant theory of everything, and being able to publish a paper that maybe would go in a different direction was nearly impossible, right? So the committees that review journal submissions would reject alternate views. So in a way, human systems in, let's say, the domain of physics may have created very similar barriers to progress to those that you are seeing right now in your interactions with LLMs that, hey, you just go one way, right? And then you're gonna be supported and you go this way and you're gonna not, and the system and the human guardrails or the AI guardrails will stop you going in another direction. So that's a good example, and I think we are seeing that. And so there's going to be like AI of several speeds. So chances are that there is going to be a high-speed AI that is going to be maybe uh, available to research centers or people with a lot of deep pockets or governments. And then there's going to be a consumer AI that is going to be kind of like this, Honda Civic. Sure, yeah, it's very useful, but it's not a V12 engine, right? So I think that's kind of a little bit of what we're seeing.
Well, and on that same point, I still think for most, and this is still maybe my focus and the reason why I jumped into this head first is I always want to make computers easier to use, right? So,
Mhm.
a scenario just happened yesterday, and I will say I've found way too many of these lately. So forgive me if this sounds like I'm making it up, but I find I've talked to customer service representatives, I've had to deal with just dealing with some governmental stuff, and then I've also wanted to do some things. And the funny thing is that I think be in my mind what I'm missing is that not everything follows a good pattern, right? This is the beauty of having humans in the loop. I guess maybe that's what we should be talking about a lot, right? Humans in the loop are pretty critical because they can take action, right? And most of us want action, right? We don't want, how one shot answers are, right? It's like maybe too complicated, maybe it's over your head, maybe you don't make uh, cement uh, buoys every day. You see what I mean? But you can get
Yeah.
information now really well done. I mean, in fact, I'm planning a party, so sorry,
Mm.
I'm gonna make you feel bad that you're not gonna be there, but trust me, it's gonna be too crowded. Anyway, so I'm gonna make all the food, and so it was interesting to not only get the recipes, but get the shopping list and sort of work through what I was gonna make, then time it. And I thought, great use of whatever, right? Like this model handled this stuff perfectly fine, right? Is it wrong? Yeah, maybe a little of it, but it doesn't matter, right? It's just and by the way, when it got stuff wrong, it got stuff really wrong, and so you have to kind of tell it like, oh no, I'm not going to make all this on Saturday. I've got a wedding to go to, or something.
Mm.
You see what I mean? Like I need
Yeah.
these things not to spoil. Either way, you can always get a pretty good answer for things that are, I would say, reasonably complicated. Yeah, I mean, I would say planning a meal for, I don't know, 50 some odd people, is a pretty, not
Mm.
something I do every day for sure. So getting this thing to put it together and not going the old route of having to Google a bunch of recipes and copy and or whatever. So the thing is for me, as a pretty computer savvy person, I could do it that way, or I
Mm.
could do it this new way. And my hope is when it comes to surviving AI, that everyone has this in their life, right? Or their job or their relationships or their kid. You know what I mean, right? You have a bunch of
Mm.
stuff that you do not very often. And that's usually when you kind of look to a friend, or you go on Reddit and you ask somebody, and then you have to kind of interpret a lot of stuff, right? Like I
Mm.
don't know. I mean, there's a lot of opinions, so this idea of there's this intermediary is brand new and it's really super interesting. And we're both obsessed with it, right? But it's more of this
Mm.
intermediary now rather than the godlike. Yeah, I don't know. All this stuff about it being so great is kind of
Mm.
immaterial to its use case. You see what I mean? So if you're like, hey, we're all going to take the weekend off, can you monitor our war efforts and shoot anything down that you feel like? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that happens. In fact, I saw Plantier's system being demoed, and I was like, okay, great. You guys really got the Call of War look going on, it's like this is straight out of
Yeah, video
uh,
game. Yeah. Mm.
it's a total video game, and I'm
Mm.
like, okay, really? Are you serious? Like, that's really the best we can do? Because, of course, actually hurting people with weapons is not a video game. You see what I mean? Like, the reality of it is so different from the video game. But that's why it's
Yeah.
like you can't just ask the AI to do it because it doesn't understand anything about real life, right? It couldn't care less and couldn't probably even be trained because that's not what it is, right? It's just a fun physics experiment, that comes up with pretty decent stuff. But surviving, I don't mean in that sense, right? We're not waiting for AI to take over because I still think it would just fail worse than we would.
Yeah, just
Because
just to digress very quickly, I
sure,
mean,
no, no,
there used to be that saying that armies are not marching on their feet; they are marching on their stomachs, right?
I mean,
Uh,
yeah. And
it's
almost all of the armed services is logistics, by the way.
yeah.
Like almost 80% of it is just getting something somewhere.
So it
So
looks like
yeah.
Palantir is basically trying to tell us that, armies nowadays will be marching on the AIs, right? So it's going to be all supply chain optimized by, by the AIs delivered, hopefully without people, right? You're just going to have this autonomous, piece of equipment that's going to be delivered to the front line. You're going to press the button, on the Palantir's, website, and it's going to do its job, right? That it's going to run, if it runs out of resources, ammo, or whatever, it's going to be automatically delivered, right? So that's going to be the future of the warfare, right? So it's kind of,
Future of
yeah,
warfare just sounds
yeah,
like too many movies. You know what I mean? It's too much
yeah.
Iron Man for me because I'm like, the fantasy is already insane, right? Like the fantasy of all this. Whereas we remember War Games, speaking of
Mm.
which, the fun movie
Yeah.
where, I guess Matthew Broderick was going to end the world because he was a fun hacker kid or whatever. But here it is, this thing playing games with itself. So speaking of AI, um, we always have to do this every week, I think, which is to separate machine learning from artificial intelligence. And so what I saw was really cool, which was actually about special effects, which is a whole nother deal. But boy, it's hard to make things look fake, look good. So they're going into all this stuff, and this guy wanted to train a neural net. This is back to machine learning, right? So he's just showing how you can train a neural net in order to do like a kind of an alpha channel or something, or whatever they have to
Mm.
do in special effects. That whatever they do is complicated, right? And it's very
Yeah.
weird. So what he did, which I thought you would enjoy, is he started out with a bunch of examples, right? Like I need to train you, so here's a bunch of examples of stuff, and sooner or later you're like, it's really hard to find examples. So then
Mm.
he thought to himself, what if I started to do just variations? You see where this is going right now, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
just going to take this thing and I'm going to just make a whole bunch of variations and then I'm going to train it in this. So the
Mm.
reason I'm getting to this is sort of interesting because this is what I think is actually the Achilles heel is guess what? You have really trained it in this. So back to being a hi-fi obsessive, you know what I mean? Like I've gotten all the answers, but I've missed the point. See what I mean? Like I'm really good at all these details and I can solve this problem with this model extremely well. It's just you give it another problem and it has no idea because this is what we call about artificial data, right? Like, and it's real, right?
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
the only way you can, the problem with these stupid language models is, right? You have to have tons of data that's all pretty good, or at least, you know what I mean? To even get anything. So we've been what, 20 years into sharing our TikTok reels and writing blog posts. You see what I mean? Like we've been training this, we've been giving it data to train
Yeah.
for 20 years.
Mm.
Okay, so good for us because you
Yeah.
can't get anything without that, right? But then it can be again too narrow, right? There's just things that we just don't, you know, we don't have content about it. You know what I mean? And I think that's this sort of like breaking point, right? Which is one is sycophancy. Sorry. Sooner or later, after a couple, only you would listen to me this long, right? Because you're such a great guy. But most people are like, I got stuff to do. I got better things to do. You know, And so my new I think I wrote this down. My new tenets of the problems with AI is the number one is it can't understand time, which is really
Mm.
bad because statefulness and all this kind of stuff is kind of a really important thing in real life, right? Like plants don't grow just because you tell them to. You know, they need the right environments, and environmental awareness is something I think we're really good at. So it's like, hey, we're going to go into your department and we're like, hey, you know what you guys need? AI. And most departments would be like, you know, the last thing we need.
Yeah.
Right? Because most people don't use computers, right? They use a word processor and an email, you know, Outlook. Sorry, Jack. You know,
Mhm.
the thing I hate most in life is Outlook. But
Yeah.
you see what I mean? It doesn't make you into this super user. And I'm trying to plant the flag that I think there is going to be this OS soon, maybe. This is
Yeah.
maybe a more interesting topic,
Yeah.
but so
No
far,
question. Yeah.
okay, so far surviving wise, most people come to you and be like, "Yeah, you got to get your AI game going." And most people will be like, "What are, you know, like I have no idea."
Mm. Yeah.
And so they hire Jack, right? That's the point
Mm.
here. You're supposed to have people who know what they're doing, right?
Yeah. 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 That's the point. Yeah. Being able to do something with a technology, right? Not just to be a nerd, right? Not just to use
No,
AI in
no.
order to use the AI, but perhaps there is something, like there's some sort of an ROI that you can find, right? Like you're gonna look
Oh,
at,
oh,
yeah,
everywhere. I mean, but
yeah,
most things have that 5%. And I apologize, but you were there with me. I don't know if you realized, but Dave Miller, my old boss, our old boss, um, he gave me the job of putting in all the classes every quarter. There was a lot of what we teach, a couple hundred, maybe, I don't know,
yeah.
150
There was a
classes.
lot. Yeah,
I had to enter
yeah.
them all. I was a data entry person. That was like half of my job. And I will tell you, as a data entry person, I was terrified most of the time.
Mm.
Because if you screw up, right? And
Yeah,
what
there
I
is no
don't think
class.
we realize is that most of us are data entry people.
Mm.
And our cost of failure is, measurable, right? Like, that's why we're paying for good data, or we're paying for not necessarily popular TikToks, because in a sense, you want to know why things aren't popular. You know what I mean? Like you need a ton of information to even have a chance of being any good, is what I mean. And previously nobody cared because I don't spend all day on TikTok. I know you do. I know you love your
No,
TikToks.
I don't even have the app.
Okay. Well, but your Instagram feed is always buzzing. But you see, like,
Yeah, well, yeah.
but our ability to ramp up all this content, right? It only comes with the fact that you're also, I think, in a different world of what media means, because I know we have this as a big national problem right now, which is like believability. Like, hey, you can say whatever you want, but can you back it up? And do you literally need video evidence? Well, sure. Not only
Mm.
video, you need like 6 video evidences that something even occurred. So I think we've changed the bar as to what this information portends.
Mm.
And that's taken years, right, to get used to not trusting anything. And then AI comes in, and now I get all this stuff, right? Is like, is this AI? And it's usually some famous person doing something silly. I don't know, like, or it's weird what it is, but everybody is now like, I can't tell. Not that it matters. Maybe I should just say that. Does it matter that it's real or not? Right? How would this make you feel or behave? Maybe where we need to get, right? Okay, is this supposed to change your mind about something? Then I'd probably not trust it too much. If it's something that you could try out and, you know. So, long story short, I think there's still a big learning curve as to getting most or any people to kind of embrace whatever generative AI is, even though we feel as though it's old hat to us. Does that feel right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely there's something to it. Yeah, I think, a kind of a useful way maybe to look at the AI, maybe is the stable diffusion model. To your point, maybe about having a operating system that is going to be the AI. So Windows is not going to be there. It's going to be something that is kind of like an AI generated. And there's not going to be any apps because the AI will generate an app that it's going to answer your question. So so there's not going to be any Outlook code, right? It's just going to
Yeah.
be
And,
yeah.
and maybe I didn't put this together. The reason I was talking about painstakingly entering data is that, well, could we get this to do that, right? Like, can you take a tough job or a kind of a menial job and use AI to solve it quickly? Like, that's the question. And a lot of people do have this anecdote, especially coders, right? I mean, coders are coding, although I come from the time of, well, first thing, you're supposed to write a lot of tests, which nobody ever wrote. Sorry. And then secondly, you're supposed to solve some problems with code. You see what I mean? And if you're doing it well, you're supposed to have two people doing it so that then you can make sure that you can understand and maintain whatever solution that you're working on, right? Or at least document it. None of those things have ever taken place in my knowledge.
Because there is no time, right? You are racing towards the deadline for any business.
There you
problem,
go.
Right, and by the time you have something that works, it's already the deadline time, and you're happy that I can press enter and it displays hello world, right? And you are extremely happy to do that.
Yes.
Right, and then you have to move to another project, right?
Well, and this is my second thing that AI needs, which is it needs an energy budget. Because the point of how we work is we don't work linearly. That's the thing, is like if we get too obsessive about hi-fi, hopefully we go off and maybe have a nice meal or a bike ride or go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like we can't maintain our focus for too long. And this is all TikTok's fault, right? But this is the thing, is that we're not good. And this is a superpower, is what I'm saying. Is we don't get stuck, whereas AI will get stuck. It will 100% get stuck. And that's why I started to learn when I was doing my physics stuff, is I'd get to a certain point and it would be like, I can't be this clever. I mean, I don't know anything. So I have to take what I was doing that I felt good about and take it to another model. So I started being like, I'm never unfaithful to my beautiful wife, but I was going from model to model, right? Without, trying to sort of fool it that this was something new and seeing how close I was. And I swear, if I didn't run out of models, although I do, by the way, shout out to brand new model. This is called Arena AI. You might like this. So what it does is it just randomizes the models. It has two models that compete against each other for everything. Pretty cool, really.
Adversarial, yeah, very good, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know where this is from, but it's probably a university or something. But it's fun that there's a lot of kite key. There's a lot of really interesting models, and I think it just randomizes them. But the fun thing is some are really quite great in this context, and some are okay. I don't know. They're all pretty good, but I just thought it was interesting that then my model hopping doesn't have to happen as often, but I will think that that's got to be a new thing where somehow you either have to have the AI does need an energy budget. I think it needs to be like, okay, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of this topic. Unlike you, Jack. Yeah. Like we need to change the topic to something else, or something, because then it will start to actually have that reflection time, right? The time to say, what were we talking about again? Oh, okay. You see what this is, just this thing of like why we are so incredibly smart, I think, is because this is built into us. Our lack of attention is kind of a superpower.
Yeah, you can look at it this way. I mean,
Well, it only
solution,
matters that
yeah.
we have this device. That's all I'm saying. It's like it used to
Yeah.
be, it was just hard work, and I had to enter it all by hand. And if I made a mistake, it would be awful. But now I think of like, can I just get something else to do this for me, right? That
Mm.
won't make a mistake. And considering data entry, I think is still it's pretty significant, as in terms of people being engaged in it, right? I know we do it for free on Instagram, like I'm the data enterer, right?
Mm.
And I'm the one posting TikTok reels and I'm the one formatting this for YouTube. You see what I mean? Like we've already learned the systems that they want us to use. Whereas now we have a kind of more, well, I'm still waiting for it to clean up my files in my desktop. You see what I mean? And I don't think it's getting any closer.
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean the data entry, I mean the example that you gave is actually excellent because I think that it's still this job exists, right? I mean if there is, let's
Oh,
say
oh no, no,
you
I'm
have,
saying it's a huge job. I think it,
yeah.
well, because the accuracy part, I think it's still anomalies, right? I mean, you're still going to have a certain amount of crap data, and you have to have some sort of, I don't know. This I think goes back to maybe a year ago. We were like, can we have sort of a service that just fills out forms, right? Maybe it does it from voice. I don't know. Like we try that now. We try the branching thing whenever you have to call somebody. Sorry, I was just on the phone. It's like press 3, press 1, press 2. You know what I mean? Like we're still in branching logic
Hmm.
and you can't
But
get out of it.
even without getting into the data quality issue, right? Let's assume that there is a perfect information out there, right? Let's say the
Hmm.
dean, you talk to the dean, and the dean has told you, hey, we have to offer 10 courses, and here are the courses, right? Then somebody has to write them down into the system, right? Even if they are perfectly delivered to you, they have to be entered so that they become, maybe a drop-down menu that later on somebody will select from. But still, somebody has to, your AI strategy class has to be manually typed. And if they made a mistake and instead of AI, use a different acronym, right? That mistake is going to be a human mistake, right? Uh, and
And by the
yeah,
way, coding
yeah.
is only mistakes to me, right? I have
Mm.
never gotten my semicolon nesting thing figured out. You know what I mean? It's always a mystery as to where your brackets go.
Mm.
Sorry. I mean, it's just not part of my head. I know what some people might be like second nature. Does this and also, so back to our big revelation, huge middle ground here, right? Which is um, underneath all this is a little thing called Bash, I think, right? We've got Bash
Mm.
and we got
Oh yeah.
ZSH and then PowerShell because it went to the marketing department, right? Because PowerShell is just cooler sounding, I
Oh
suppose.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what this is, for all those not familiar, is computers are stupid, right? And they really don't do much under the hood, but they require translations to happen all the time, right? Oh, and number three, by the way, computers need or LLMs need to have an energy budget. They need to be bored and go off and think about it every once in a while. And then I think what was number three is um, anyway, came and went.
Well, I
Never
have
mind.
a story, right? So I have a story about Bash and stuff like that. So there was a time
Oh, memory
on
management.
Windows.
Sorry. The answer to everything is a config file or memory management. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so there was a fascinating situation for a number of years in Windows, probably maybe a decade ago, and since then I didn't check, so maybe it's still going on. But if you were developing a system and you made a mistake that, let's say, you saved the text file, maybe from Notepad or whatever, and you forced the file to be .txt, so means you typed in the file name .txt, right? Then the file that you actually saved was, let's say, myfile.txt.txt.
.txt.
And yeah, there was absolutely no way under Windows to find out what is the actual file name. Maybe you need to kind of like click like 10 times to go into properties or something, but even then it was very difficult to see. So the only way to kind of find out what's the real file name was you open the DOS window or a bash window equivalent, right? And actually list the file and see. And and it would show there, oh, it's a myfile.txt.txt.
Yeah,
that was the only way.
Files. Hold that thought. Hold on. I always do this, Jack. I apologize for that. I always drink way too much coffee before these things.
Yeah, and I was looking at the email. So there is, I just got an email from Axpona, the expo, for hi-fi. It's like, April.
No, we'll go. We'll do it. Yeah. We'll figure it out. So we were just saying, sorry, that yes, the under the hood, we've got a processor. We've got assembly language that I never understood. Memory, which is always the problem with everything in this world, right? Is managing memory. And then you've got this layer, which really is kind of running everything, right? So I'm a GUI guy, right? I clicked on something, I said close. All that does is sort of generate an event that gets handled, right? And this is what's fun. I'm doing a little bit more programming now, but it's fun because you have to open up terminal and, it's great except for the problem that I remember seeing, which is copying a file. Like if I take this file and I drag it over here, no matter what it's called, I'm pretty confident it's done. Doing that in a terminal window to me was always like not any fun whatsoever because we have these ridiculously complex hierarchical ideas about how things are organized, which aren't anything but a database. Anyway, there's a lot of mess in between, right? So here's this layer, but weirdly, back to our original, I think the revelation is it's just English, right? Like most of this is just talking. Well, guess what knows how to talk and also is in a very understandable language, right? Like you can just ask, what are your commands? So it can learn the entire subsystem of a computer, which to me seemed like, well, this seemed like a really good use for an LLM. And by the way, LLMs told me that it was really clever. So I wondered what you thought, because as I said, it's always complimenting me.
Yeah. I think that
sorry, you stopped for a second. Keep going.
Yeah. All the commands that we are talking about that are command line and the piece from Reddit that you sent me, right? I totally agree. I mean the grep command, the ls command, and all the stuff that we know from Linux or Unix, are perfect because it's a very limited, highly typed, highly structured way to communicate, right? You can traverse the directory structures by basically kind of jumping, one by one, and the LLMs are very good at doing jumps by one and going to the next one, and then reading the name of the directory. That's perfect, right? So yeah, I think that maybe going back to my stable diffusion example, right? A stable diffusion is basically a generative process where you create an image, right? So, but the interesting thing is that it starts with basically a white noise screen. So you just imagine pixels that are completely randomized in color, right? So all the pixels that you can see on screen are just lit up with basically some sort of a random noise, kind of like pattern to it, right? And then the AI begins to kind of like light them up so that they are resembling the patterns that you wanted them to create, right? So there's no fonts, in that algorithm. There's no artifacts that are kind of like grabbed and placed on screen. Everything is kind of just molded from those pixels, right? So that is kind of kind of like the front end. The back end for that process is going to be the the greps, the LSs and everything else. And that's going to be the next thing that you will see in operating systems, where you're going to ask a question and it's just gonna, maybe it's an email question, so it's going to put on screen something that may look like Outlook, or may just look at a single email that you ask about, right? You may have 1,000 of other emails in there, but you ask an email from me, so you're going to just see one screen, probably maybe looking very similar to the VI editor or Emacs editor, and it's going to be, and then you're going to say, okay, well, let's respond to Jack, say something polite, and make him go away, right? So that is going to be how we're going to be sending emails probably very soon.
Well, this is the exciting thing about this, and back to surviving, right? This is more like optimizing something that we couldn't ever truly optimize, because Bash, I think, we're going 50 years, or well, maybe not that long. Yeah. I guess it was something else back then.
Close,
but the idea that this was the architecture of this world we live in is pretty good, and everyone has tried to replace it. And, this was Steve Jobs' big thing, is after he invented whatever next, that he said, okay, we're just actually skipping all these intermediary languages. We keep writing, and we're just going to go back to Unix. And that's where OS 10, because it was a good idea, because then you can just separate things out. And speaking of separating things out, I have an interesting use case similar to last week, is getting ready for the wedding. Everyone's trying to get together a little slideshow, to show in the background for a thing, right? Like these are the happy couple. So that's great. I mean, how trivial is this ask, right? So the hard thing, of course, is getting photos. But finally, we got the rooms, each side has contributed. We've got some photos. Put it in Apple Photo. Maybe there's Google has one, Apple has, whatever. They all have photo things. And guess what? They all do slideshows. So far, so good, right? No biggie. Except that this slideshow sucks. Like I didn't like anything about it. Like the timing was wrong, and they took away the timing thing. The transitions were wrong. More because I know you're such a big TikTok fan. Anytime you had a portrait style, it just was this black bars on the side. You've sort of noticed this lately, right? Like it just is ugly. And I was like, hold on a second. Like I'm a little bit of an arty guy, right? I mean, isn't there better? So guess what? I go looking. Well, number one, every single person's like, here's a slideshow, and it's got some sample people in it. It's sort of like getting a frame at Hobby Lobby or something, like here's a much better looking family than yours. Just keep it. No, you got to go replace them all. And I'm like, well, that's work. This is reminding me of David, right? Like this was work to enter in data. I don't want to do any work. So far, right? But I know what I want. So, right, perfect leader of your team, right? I know what I want. I just don't want to do it. So anyway, so I'm there and I'm like, okay, I'll look into third party. And as I said, this is weird, right? You would think not a hard problem. I would think, especially with the abilities that HTML has. You can do animations, you can do anything in HTML. It's amazing, right? So that was it. I finally said, all right, I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'll go to Figma Make, and I'm going to say, hey, make me this slideshow site, and here's a few images, and I want it all. And it's really happy to do everything in React, which is actually not bad, because for little data-driven sites, whatever, right? Like, it's not syntactically too weird. And I just said, okay, and I got it, and it made it, and it worked, and I made a few design choices, which was also great. In fact, I took the backgrounds when it wasn't one and said blur the backgrounds and do an overlay and all the fancy stuff that's easy to say, and takes forever to code. Maybe not forever, but trust me, I've been doing this long enough where I'm like, if I don't find a library that does this for me, like, I'm not going to go and solve this problem. Like, this is too many variables. Yet, oddly, again, kills it. Bring it into VS Code, add 50 or so photos, right? And I'm like, here, just scan this and build an array every time you do this. It's like typical. It's a typical, what used to be a 1 hour kickoff meeting where you say a bunch of stuff and everyone forgets what you just said, and then they go off and build something different. Like, it's this feeling of like, well, it's not lost in translation. And that's why I'm bringing this theme together, which is some things are lost in translation through just you telling the system to do things. You know what I mean? Like, it can't bubble up too many errors unless you're a Windows person, I guess, right? And it's always like, error -500, can't do whatever, whatever, computers break really badly. But I was really shocked that I actually put together almost a commercial service in about a half an hour, much shorter amount of time than gathering the photos. And I thought, now that's a crazy situation. Again, this is the dumbest use case. But how many people out there doing data entry, right, are doing this? Like, literally, they're trying to take their slide, their quarterly report and put it into a slideshow. I mean, to me, that's the week of work that a lot of people do every week. Right? Now, if you could just do it, which is what we try to do for Accenture, right, is we wanted to do it for you, but of course we made it so complicated that I was trying to simplify it. And that is my course, by the way. I just want one sentence and tons of data that it gets all the time, and I want it to just keep updating this sentence. You know what I mean? Like, I just have this feeling, kind of like the slideshow, that if you just saw a story about what was going on in your company or going on in your whatever, right, hi-fi world, or anything, right? The point is, we just don't, we enjoy the gathering of information, but we don't spend a lot of time on the outcome, the knowledge part, like, do I know anything more after going to Expona? Definitely not. Except, boy, cables are so expensive.
Yeah, it's speakers, right? And everything else.
Everything else, right? And then by the way, the newest and truly the thing is, it's always the room it's in. I mean, that's the point. It's like, where is it is always going to be half. That's why I'm saying you miss out when you get so hyper focused. You forget. It's like, oh, you could just move over to that other chair and it'll sound completely different. Not what people want to hear, but it's true. Or move anything in terms of, it's always going to change because it's dynamic. It's a dynamic system. So I don't know if that got us anywhere. I still think getting the LLM to fill in forms is pretty interesting, right? I think you'd still need the sort of, I don't know. I mean, again, I think these are just such hard problems, but they don't seem like hard to articulate, but they're hard to solve. And I think those are good problems for LLMs, right? That you can articulate it pretty well. You just can't do all the nonsense it takes to actually make something work.
Well, talking about problems that are difficult to articulate. I mean, one of the more interesting things that recently I saw was that in the physical AI, right? We are getting ready for those robots that are going to be everywhere, like in the movie I, Robot. So I saw a solution that was articulating the kind of like a the dishwashing problem. So basically, there was a guy wearing those special gloves that over like a for a finger for a hand with five fingers, right? So he was basically wearing those special gloves that were registering all the movement, right? And there he was wearing also the camera, and then basically washing actual dishes in the sink, right? And in the help that those movements combined with the camera imaging will create enough data set that a real robot, in a real situation, will be able to extrapolate from and wash the dishes, robotically, right? So it's so kind of like we are trying really hard to show the AI what we do, right? And sometimes it requires basically simulation, right? Like real life things, right? So.
Well, in studying in my studies, which is human computer interaction, we started there sort of because we said, hey, there's plenty of actual laws and understanding that goes around humans and their problems with the world around them, right? And so these were safety issues, right? Like, so if you ever watch those things where they're like mixing colors or whatever, you know what I mean? If you have these machines that can hurt you, you need a prominent, very easy to find stop button. And I was watching somebody making record albums. Actually, they were showing this guy, and it was like, you're doing this a little too fast. That's all I kept thinking. You know what I mean? Like, these are very powerful, hot pressing machines, you know what I mean? And you need safety. And so we started this with safety, and I kept thinking like, well, this is a stupid website. Like, you don't need to be safe, And so Wild West for a while, and then all of a sudden, thankfully, I think the W3C came in and said, no, you have to actually form this stuff properly, right? We can't index this stuff if we don't understand what it is. You have all this garbage, everything's a bunch of garbage code, right? And we don't want that. We need headings, and so I've been on that kick for years because I think of that as being architecture, right? You're adding hierarchy to something. But just like our computers, I've got a folder and a folder and a folder and a folder. And you remember I named them all. What was your thing? TXT? Like, I don't remember what I named anything. So I've got this terrible problem, of lots of stuff, and I don't know what it is. And I really can't search, which has been the thing forever, right? Because I don't know what things are called, right? I just know I did this presentation at one point. Didn't it have this person in it? You see what I mean? Like, I don't want to do the work again. Now I've got this weird new helper where I don't need all this stuff anymore, maybe. That would be a fun thing, right? I don't need to copy and paste from an old solution. Since I'm not doing that anymore, I'm just articulating what I want rather than remembering all the work I did. Right? I mean, this is the problem with coders too. It's like, boy, all the work you did to get that thing to not eat up all the memory, but all of that, do you need it anymore? I don't know. I mean, that was the last AI story, right? Is that it just overburdened the GPU by running the Bitcoin thing on it, and until it was spiked, people were like, why are you using all this GPU anyway? So is this kind of like, oh, well, that's unexpected that you just decided to max out your self, quote unquote, because it doesn't know or care, right? Now, when it comes to washing dishes, I'm just going to tell you, I'm really good at somersaults. I can show you all day long, Jack, but you're not a somersault guy. That's all there is to it. And by the way, you're just going to hurt yourself. Some people just shouldn't wash dishes, is what I'm getting at. And weirdly, we invented this thing called a dishwasher.
That's not going to be $70,000.
Well, thankfully, it doesn't have arms, at least as I can tell. I mean, it hasn't done anything to indicate it. Well, and I think everyone Not everybody, right? But people were just saying we are not built for anything except
Mm.
somersaults, right? But all our devices are, and they're all really good at those things because they aren't humans, you know. We don't have wheels, right? So, there's no reason, although you probably are pretty good at single wheelers. I bet you have a couple of those, right? Like zooming down the alley, getting out to Woodstock Central on your single wheeler. No?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So see, once you get a wheel,
Mm.
you don't need to have a robot you, but you do have to learn not to fall off of those things, which I don't understand. I tried a
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever tried a unicycle? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, I did.
Don't try it.
Yeah, it's
Oh, are
bad.
you good
Yeah,
at
it's
it?
bad.
Did you
Yeah.
get to?
Yeah, I mean, not, I kind of got the balance going, but
Did
the
you
thing,
really?
yeah,
Well, see, you are ready to train AI. That's all there is, right? You
yeah.
can now you can let it know how this thing works, because I was gonna say that and juggling never could handle it.
Mm. Yeah, that's kind of good. That's a good ending. High note for the ending point.
I think so. We must respect our ability to do uh, things that French people like to do, right? It's all mime, juggling, and unicycles. That's the things that make us human. Agreed?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's
And baguettes.
finally,
Baguettes and brie.
yeah, finally we found kind of the meaning of life.
Always good times. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, yeah.
A good a
Thank you,
good one.
Mike.
A good one. A good episode. Good ep.
Yeah, good up. Yeah.